Every club. Every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome back to the Daily Southampton, part of the Global Sports Podcast Network. My name is Greg Elliott, and as always, joined today by my good friend and wonderful co-host, Zach Ingofinch. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. Still reeling from an extremely hot weekend. Looking
Only
forward to
gets
talking
hot
about...
here, mate. I don't know. It's Tuesday.
Yeah.
It's Transfer Tuesday. My Nippers Sports Day has just been cancelled because it's too hot. So, you know, what more can be said about that?
That sounds like, considering that you're on a bit of annual leave, mate. That sounds lovely for you.
I mean, the annual leave was to go to the sports day, so now it's just going to have to be, you know, at the point of rearrangement. So
nice. That was just a day off. That sounds perfect. What more do you want?
That's just never how that plays out, though, is it, mate? That's
not in your family. I know that for a fact.
Needs to be a day off that my wife doesn't know about. That's the real thing. I've got garden work to do. Yeah. Look, as mentioned, it is Transfer Tuesday, and boy, oh boy, do we have plenty to cover. Shout out to Just Saints, who keeps a nice orderly fashion for us to follow on X. And we're going to go through, since our last time of recording, and waffle a bit about all of the goings-on, of which there have been a lot. So, mate, the start of the week, lots of an about Trabzonspor, right? They still owe money for Mislav Orsic, but...
Yeah, we mentioned that last week, and we kind of discussed it. It might just be that it depends on if it's like expected money they owe us on. But the only reason that I think it's not is the fact that they've asked for more money up front, right? If it was something that was like, hey, we have agreed that you pay us like over this 6-year period, I don't think they'd be as stressed out. But where they've gone like, no, you owe us more money up front because you're still, you know, you've missed payments. That's a bit more of a question. But either way, the deal is done.
I was going to say, without jumping too far ahead in the news, that's it. It's confirmed by the club that Paul Ohonachu has left to go to Trabzonspor for, what was it, 5 million?
Something like that. I think it's like somewhere between 5 to 7, right? Which is less than we would have paid, probably more than we'd expected to get. We've fought hard to get a better deal, and I think that, you know, it is some money we could have not expected to get, in my opinion. So
yeah, look, I really like Paul Ohonachu as a person. I think that he speaks with great humility, always seems to really want to give his all to the team. I've seen lots of opinions that say he would tear up the championship, and those opinions are wrong.
Look, he's not going to get a chance to. He went on loan the last time we went down to the championship. He's got his move back to Turkey that I think he kind of always wanted secretly in the back of his mind. He had a good run. He will be remembered fondly for some of his ridiculous montages and goals.
I've seen the slow motion montage of him against Liverpool where he somehow, again, seemingly accidentally, manages to take it round 3 players.
It's like when Sulemana scored like twice against Liverpool at the end of the first relegation season, right? And then like since then, that's kind of what people judged him on going into the championship, and we thought he'd tear it up. And equally, you know, he had a successful enough season last season for him to probably get a bigger move than we'd expect if he manages to pass a medical, which is very going to be Umanari considering his history. And I'm sure we'll get into that later. But I can only, you know, they were good friends. I think him, Ugachukwu, and, you know, so Onuachu all kind of hung out together. I think that if they're all kind of leaving, naturally, if all your mates leave a workplace, you tend to kind of go with them. And as I said, he kind of already had that in the back of his mind that's where he wanted to go. Because that rumour's been going around for the whole of the season anyway.
Since like January, yeah.
Like, so like I'm not hugely surprised by it, and I don't think it's the end of the world.
No,
it's not like we had again before that. Our top goal scorer was our midfielder placed in a centre back position. So
yeah, look, all the best to Paul Ohonachu, but it is not the end of the world for Southampton. Let's be honest.
It's done. It means we'll look to get a new striker, which admittedly are difficult commodities. But if he was so popular in the English league, he would have been picked up by another Championship team or alternatively a Premier League team, and he wasn't. So
sticking with the striker position, Saints FC open to selling Adam Armstrong this summer. What do we make of that?
I don't know kind of how I feel, because people are like, oh, but he did such a good job in the Championship the season before, and I'm like, yes, that's true, but then he had his drop down to West Brom, and that might be more to do with the way that West Brom play. It depends. I think if it comes to a natural conclusion at the end of his time, I'll wish him well. But I don't know. I feel like he could do a job for us next season, especially with us losing Paul. Depends who we're planning to replace him with, right? Like, I feel like a striker's always been on the cards. Are we just going to then rely entirely, do we want just to swap between Cameron Archer, Ross Stewart? Well, at that point, we're going to have Cameron Archer, Ross Stewart, potential replacement Adam Armstrong. Ben Brereton Diaz can also play in that area, and he is at pre-season training, and Sheffield United, which were the only prospect to buy him, don't seem to want to buy him, which means he's probably going to be in the squad next year. Is he going to be played as an attacking midfielder? I feel like that's probably not a good idea, because that's what we saw last time and it didn't really work out too well. Same with Sheffield United. So it's not like we are done for options.
No.
And it would be sad, but I also wouldn't be surprised, and I don't think I would be devastated, but I would wish him well, because he's been nothing but a really good servant for the club.
100%. And you've got to think about the future, right? And we know that Adam Armstrong is probably going to do a job for us in the Championship, but we need to not be in the same position at the end of the season as we were last season, because he has had a couple of opportunities with us in the Premier League now, and it for one reason or another, it's not his level. So, it will be a bit sad, but also, completely understandable. If a good offer comes in and it's suitable, fair enough. I can't really begrudge it. And then one more before we head to a break. And I'm going to apologise in advance to this young man whose name I am going to butcher. But apparently Saints, Watford, QPR and Coventry are all showing keen interest in Nigerian international Olakunle Olusegun.
I feel like you've tried your best with it, and you're not a native Nigerian speaker, mate. So, you tried your best. Do we know anything about him? It's not somebody that I can claim that I've heard of before.
No, literally nothing. I don't even know how to pronounce his name.
I'll have a look in the break.
But look, the Nigerian international team is a strong team, so it's potentially good. He played in the Russian Premier League last season.
I've realised who this is now, because I've seen him linked with us a couple of times. So this is Krasnodar. He's a right back. So obviously with Kyle Walker-Peters going, Sugawara probably primed to take the top spot. I don't know whether or not we'll be keeping... Well, I think we seem to be keeping James Bree as well. I think it's more that he will kind of supposedly replace that sort of role, maybe. But we're not the only ones linked with him.
Interesting. All around the same competition level, all around us in the sort of positions we'd be expecting to fight for. So it'll be interesting to see how that one plays out and breaks. Right. That brings us nicely to our first break, and time for a message from our partners at Bioniq.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bioniq, the world's most personalised supplements. Bioniq provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bioniq. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now. Your body.
Okay, and we are back. I am just going to keep rolling through, Zach, because we have got so much to get through. You alluded to it earlier, but Saints and Atalanta are at the final stages of a negotiation in a deal for Kamaldeen Sulemana. The newest deal I've seen is totaling about 18.5 million, or like 17.5 with add-ons, like a 15% sell-on fee for us. That's decent, right?
I think that we were probably thinking about a struggle to get 10 million for him probably in January. So I think that, his performances and some of the performances he's put in the later half of the season have added it on. His friendship, his mentorship with Juric obviously is probably in on that, and the fact that we seem to be shrewdly negotiating better than we have previously. I think it's a really decent outcome for everybody involved. And I think I mentioned that last Tuesday. Like, if we get a bunch of money for him, he wants to move on. We kind of reclaim some of what was our top spend, and then we can reinvest that into the next season. Then happy days, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I think, a player with such promise and potential, but realistically no final product, and has shown that for us in all of the opportunities he's had. And I hope that he does go on to do bigger and better things with Atalanta, and fair play to him. But yeah, it's good money, good deal. Seems like a win-win all round, really. It's hard to say more on that. Lots of news about our coaching team, but we covered that at some length last week, so I won't go into it. An interesting post from Wrexham player Ollie Palmer. Not transfer speculation, definitely just looking forward to it. But I didn't know that he was presumably a Saints fan as a kid. His granddad used to take him down to St Mary's, and now opening game of the Championship.
It's one of those things, mate, where it's like I didn't think you would have a connection to Charlton Athletic had you not told me, or Exeter, right? Yeah. It's one of those things where you don't know necessarily. Like my uncle is from Manchester. He is a City fan, a loose City fan. We'll put it that way, because he never really wasn't hugely into football, but that was his team. And then they obviously accidentally got taken over by an oil conglomerate and became massively successful football behemoths. But that wasn't, that was why part of my growing up was also low-key paying attention to City when Nicholas and Alka were there. It's just how, sometimes you just end up with these connections. But either way, as we pointed out before, it's probably going to end up as either the part of their documentary where they suddenly realise that the jump to the Championship is really hard, or the part of the documentary where they show this kind of inspirational speech and then they batter Saints 5-0 and then they're having a really good time and then they fly all the players out first weekend to Vegas again or whatever, and at least we'll be in a documentary.
Yeah, one way or another, right?
One way or another. It seems
as previously mentioned, let's hope it's the arc where they realise that the league is going to be much harder than they expected. Otherwise, it's on Disney Plus for all the wrong reasons, mate. Which, I mean, would still be really Saints. More news on the Toolpool deal. Apparently, it also includes a 20% sell-on fee, which is
okay.
Yeah, great.
Sure. I don't know how much they'll get, but whatever.
Every little helps and all that.
Passive income for the club is always a good idea, right? Like, if they get released on a free and we lose it, that's sad. However, if they do sell people on, it's just extra money. It's always nice to have a little bit of a surprise bonus in your pay packet, innit? And if that's just for the actual running of the day-to-day club, then sure, why not?
Absolutely. The next story on the list is I saw this in probably the most amusing of ways, as I'm sure you would think as someone who does a daily Southampton podcast. My news feeds on all social media are just full of all sorts of speculation and nonsense. And I saw a post that said, Juan Larios is back in training and happy to be a part of the Southampton season. And I was like, great, that sounds all right. He's best mates with Matty Fernandez. That can only be a good thing for us. And I scrolled down and literally the next post and the news piece that's here is that Juan Larios is set to join La Culturella Leonesa on a season-long loan. And once again, a name that I have butchered. And I am very sorry to our Spanish compatriots because I think
the guy that reported that is from ESPN. So it's a pretty more reputable source than usual. And it makes sense more that he was probably looking forward to getting into the season, has realised he is not going to have that much of a feature, right? And then potentially is going to go and get minutes under his belt, which is exactly what he needs. So I'm not hugely surprised if he comes back. Like, he was young anyway. It just kind of feels like he was signed for the first team and then has barely had first team football because
he has been injured for the longest time, right? Like, he's signed young and has been injured, so minutes is what he's going to need. Needs to be match fit, needs to be back. You don't always bounce back from an injury like that. You just have to look at players from our history in recent memory, like Sam McQueen, to know that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention.
So it's a tricky one, but yeah, minutes. Just hope that him going out on loan doesn't negatively impact any hope we have of keeping his best mate Matty Fernandez realistically. But seems like a good move for him. Okay, time for our second break and a message from our partners at Zencastr. Here at the Global Sports Podcast Network, we spent a lot of time selecting our delivery platform, and Zencastr came out the clear winner. With 4K video recording from your phone and AI editing that automatically removes all those ums and ahs, it's super easy to start a podcast that sounds great and is delivered efficiently. If you're ready to tell your story, check out the link in the show description and learn more about Zencastr. Okay, so only one more story to talk about from this feed, but still a few bits to mention.
I got some bits to mention as well. Don't worry, don't you worry.
Apparently, Saints have tabled an offer, an €8 million offer for Damien Downs, striker set to make decision on his future upon the conclusion of the USA Gold Cup.
I've heard. Interesting. So we've been mentioned with him a couple of times, right? This isn't the first time that I've seen these links, and I think that it is an exciting prospect. And as I said, follows the Southampton tradition of having two players with the same surname, so we can never figure out which one's which.
Yeah.
But it will be interesting to see how it goes. I don't remember the last time we had a United States national in our squad, if we ever had.
No, if ever. That is a fascinating one.
We had a goalkeeper, right? Because he's the one that eventually went to Orange County that I've mentioned before, and that's the last time I remember us having any American. But again, I feel like they're doing their research on the players they want to bring in, whether it's stat heady or not. I'm happy to give anyone a punt at this point.
Look, it's Wikipedia, so don't read into it too much, but the top of his Wikipedia article reads he's a professional soccer player who plays in the Bundesliga for FC Köln. He is set to play for EFL Championship club Southampton starting in the 25-26 Championship.
That's really interesting that someone would have gone to the effort of editing the Wikipedia page already.
Fascinating, right? That is really interesting. As recently as 41 minutes ago, some German football news sources claiming it's a done deal. So I guess keep your eyes peeled this week, because that will be an interesting one. And yeah, that's the end of my list. But you say you've got some other bits there.
Yeah, so I got a journalist from Turkey who reports quite often about Galatasaray. I saw him posting about the idea that apparently Ramsdale is potentially on his way as a loan move. So obviously that means that we would not get his transfer fee back, but potentially we'll have him back in time for a promotion to the Premier League if it takes place.
That's
we kind of talked about this being a bit weird, but if he's that settled in Southampton and that happy to be at the club, but wants to get, I don't know, better minutes, more minutes, I'm not really sure. But Galatasaray being a often
the Champions League, right?
Yeah. Also, they are one of it's like with Anderlecht being sort of the old Manchester United when they were good of the Belgian league. Galatasaray have always come across as very much like that, and it might be just I want to try out a change of environment. This might be one of my opportunities to do that.
Yeah,
and also we know how much he loves a loan. So
well, yeah, very much so.
I don't know if he permanently wants to move elsewhere, because
that leaves us in such a fascinating position, right? Because then do we just stick with McCarthy? Is that really where we're at, or a combination of Baz and McCarthy? Is that?
Yeah,
I'm not sure I'm sold on it. Baffling.
Yeah,
it really is strange, right? And for us to see that something's going to happen to Ramsdale one way or another, and for one of the positions that need signing not to be a goalkeeper in the 3 pre-approved, honestly, it's currently my biggest point of concern heading into the season.
It is, and it seems to be maybe we're trying to get some money before we do that one, because it wasn't one of the pre-approved ones, but maybe it's because who knows what conversations are taking place in the background to maybe keep Ramsdale here, because that's the only other reason that I think that if we're going to go potentially into the new championship season with one goalkeeper and everyone thinks that's insane and they haven't said anything on it and it's not one of their priorities, does that mean we are planning to keep the one goalkeeper? Because I think that if all of a sudden...
That's got to be a bold statement on his way.
Yeah.
Well, right? That's...
if Ramsdale it doesn't stay, goes out on loan, and then suddenly we're scrambling for a keeper, at that point, I think, okay, yes, we definitely were trying to keep him. If he doesn't, and then he ends up staying for the championship season,
that's huge.
That's massive for us. Yeah, for sure.
Amazing. Is any more for any more, mate?
Obviously, there's a couple of coaching bits and pieces. I also saw some links from Armel Bella-Kotchap to go back to Germany.
Interesting.
So these are just a couple sporadic things that are knocking around sort of Saints Twitter. Taylor Harbour-Bellis being linked to Porto by a completely dubious source that everyone has said is just a guy going. It's just basically somebody posting randomly. And then some of the bigger Saints accounts pick it up, going, "Yeah, I'd send. Oh yeah, I think he's going to Porto," which is always fun. I love random rumors like that.
Zach, let's say this one really quietly, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it good news that there's not a lot of words about Matty Fernandes?
Well, as we have heard, right. So this is one of the problems that you've already got, where you've just said he wants to come back and he's tired. Okay.
Yeah.
And I imagine that any speculation about his future or anything like that, because he actually was at a tournament, if his agency or agent or whatever has said we're not going to talk about anything until he's had a break, because the last thing you want to deal with is having to worry about that after not having a break and a really, really tough season where you've lost both at your club level and internationally. So I'm not really. We will see as we get into the depths of it, right? I think July will be the huge moves that we don't expect to happen. At the moment, everything that's happening we kind of expected. Sulemana supposedly out the door, and Oachu supposedly out the door.
Both for great money. Exactly the prices we were talking about.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where, like, we've brought in a centre-back. We're supposedly bringing in a striker. By the looks of it, that deal might be even close to done.
Do you think this down still is the mystery striker that the deal has been close to being signed for a couple of weeks now?
I believe so. I think that if it's close to being signed, and then obviously it's been a 2-week gap, for me that seems that would be the details of the signing would be
and playing
complete.
In the Gold Cup, right?
But yeah, he hasn't quite made his decision, and maybe he'll come back and then make the decision.
Because the quarterfinal of that is what, tomorrow? I cannot claim to be an expert on Gold Cup fixtures, if I'm honest, mate. It's not.
But that would make a lot of sense to me with that, right? And they might even, if it finishes and they bring him over quite quick enough, they might even use him for the kit launch, because that will probably happen potentially this week. Because obviously we're now heading into July, and we haven't really spoken much about that since since I say Alfie House made the reasonable conversation point that's like, hey, why would they not wait until the start of the new month to launch these kits? We're like, oh yeah, you're right, commercial activities at that point would make more sense, as opposed to everybody else telling us it's definitely happening tomorrow. Definitely happening tomorrow. But yeah, so I think that it'll be right. All good.
Right. Well, that's a busy week of transfer news condensed into a nice daily podcast, mate.
And it contains a link to somebody who potentially could replace Kyle Walker-Peters.
Yeah.
It contains a strong link to a striker, a confirmed outgoing, and a couple of outgoings, but not half as many as we'd expect to see by this point. I'll take that as a win.
Yeah, huge wins. And the outgoings, expected outgoings, better money than expected. These are huge things. These are great. Fantastic news all around. Look, all positives for me so far.
Ruben Sellis, definitely now manager of Sheffield United, which replaces my Russell Martin derby, except I kind of like Ruben Sellis. To be fair, I liked Russell Martin a little bit as well, but I was quite happy for him to, I was quite happy for an sort of arduous derby, whereas I feel like the strange move, but who am I to comment on the wiles and whims of Sheffield United? We are Saints fans, and we are eating well at the moment. We'll see how the next couple of weeks go, right?
Yes, absolutely. Look, It's exciting. Football's coming back real soon. That's just about all we've got time for today. Thank you very much for joining us. Hit us up on all the socials with all of the most insane transfer rumours you've heard and who we are bringing in. I cannot wait to hear them all. Zach, thank you very much for joining me, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Every club, every day. The Global Sports Podcast Network.